Stimulus checks could hit your bank account as soon as next week. News 4 Jack's consumer investigator Lauren Verno is joining us now with a look at how much money you could receive. Lauren?
Not your annual salary. Unlike previous rounds, adult dependents, think college students or elderly parents, would receive the full $1,400 payments. And for the first time, families will receive a child tax credit, $3,000 for children 6 to 17 and $3,600 for kids under 6. But that money will be paid out in installments. Let me break this down for you. So say you're a couple with an income of $96,000 or less and you have 2 children. That means you would qualify for 4 stimulus checks.
In addition to that, Social Security can be, for the vast majority of those years, the program was bought in and more than revenue than is paid out. Approximately 90% of the money it brings in from the 12.4% payroll tax on the wages and salaries is here. The payroll tax is paid on earned income up to around $147,000 in 2022, although the upper limit will rise to $160,000 next year. The remaining 10% of annual revenue comes from a combination of taxing Social Security benefits for recipients who earn above select income thresholds. Now, folks, the payroll tax is paid on up to $147,000 in 2022. That's approximately 90% of the money of 12% payroll taxes and wages. And so, the remaining 10% of annual revenue comes from the combination of taxing the benefits for Social Security recipients who earn above certain income limits and thresholds, and the interest earned on bonds held by Social Security trust funds. The excess revenue brings in most years over what it pays out in benefits. It's required by law to be invested in government bonds too. The program for Social Security is that numerous demographic shifts are increasing payouts at a much faster rate than the revenue is actually even happening. As a result, Social Security ran a deficit in 2021. The deficit is expected to grow in size every year moving forward. These demographic shifts include the ongoing retirement of baby boomers, lower interest rates, and growing income inequality. According to the 2022 Social Security Board of Trustees report, the program is actually staring down a $20 trillion cash shortfall between 2022 and 2026. Although this is just an estimate, the trustees take into account all of demographic variables described above, as well as the cost of living adjustments passed along to beneficiaries. So the payouts keep up with the rising price of goods and services, also known as inflation. If the thing is done by lawmakers in D.C. to strengthen the Social Security, trustees believe a 23% across-the-board cut to benefits is going to be necessary by 2034 for the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust, which is known as OASI, to sustain payouts without any further cuts until 2096. Let's not forget about this, everybody. There are only 2 ways to approach a $20 trillion estimated cash shortfall. It's raise additional revenue or to cut the cost. Democrats prefer the former. And now, the core proposal by Democrats in Congress is just to increase payroll taxation on high-earning workers. As noted, wages and salaries above $147,000 in 2022 are exempt from the payroll tax. Prior to his November 2022 election to the Oval Office, Joe Biden proposed a plan that would reinstitute a 12.4% payroll tax on earned income above $400,000. Meanwhile, earnings between $147,000 and $400,000 would remain exempt from the payroll tax. To offer some context, while in excess of $1 trillion in earned income escapes Social Security payroll tax every year, the other Social Security proposal offered by Democrats is to change how the cost of living adjustments are calculated. Since 1975, the CPI for urban wage earners and clerical workers has been used to determine annual inflation and also assign COLAs. Democrats prefer the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, whereas the CPIW tracks the spending habits of workers and working-age Americans. So the CPIE would actually specifically track the spending habits of seniors, who make the bulk of the program. Folks, there is a whole bunch of news, and states and cities have approved stimulus checks. This month, many eligible residents will be able to claim a one-time direct check and fourth stimulus money. In Colorado, for instance, millions of direct payments have actually been sent out to eligible taxpayers, but more are coming out in the coming weeks. Individual filers are receiving a check of $750, while those who file jointly can get up to $1,500 in tax rebates. So those that file their state income taxes prior to June 30th will see the rebate arrive this summer, while those taxpayers who filed for an extension have until the middle of the month to do so. The residents that filed for an extension can expect their check to arrive before January 31st.
Yeah, sure. Right. The rest of the job.
Do you have a casualty here?
Yes, I think so. Obamacare will take care of it. In any event, we have this statement from Rick Scott going to challenge you. You said that you will have the votes. He says if you're for the status quo, don't vote for the don't vote for him. Do you interpret yourself as the status quo, and how do you respond to his challenge?
Well, look, I don't own this job. Anybody in the conference is certainly entitled to challenge me, and I welcome the contest.
One of the criticisms from Senator Scott and others who agree with him is that your decision not to have an agenda to run on opened up Republican candidates to attacks, that they didn't really stand for anything. What is your response to the criticism that you approached the response?
Every one of our candidates knew what they were for, expressed it quite clearly. It's pretty obvious, and all of you have been writing about it, what happened.
President, the Congress and the Senate here have got to make a very fundamental decision, and that is, do we listen to the American people who are hurting today, to seniors who have worked their whole lives but who just cannot get by in what in many cases are meager and inadequate Social Security benefits? Do we listen to them? Do we stand up for and with the people who helped build this country, who worked the farms, who worked in our factories, who served us in the armed forces? Do we stand with them and expand?
A bunch of developments are being made on the Build Back Better bill. Checks worth up to $500 may be sent out next month, and the IRS has released a very important announcement for everyone expecting to receive a relief check this year. Here's some good news. If you are a resident of Virginia, taxpayers will likely get some money back this year. The General Assembly is expected to provide and approve one-time rebates to eligible state income tax filers. But lawmakers in the state are still debating how much the next round of checks should be worth. Unlike some tax policy proposals, this campaign promise from Governor Glenn has won support from Republican and Democrats. During his speech, the governor said, "We want to have the largest tax rebate in the history of Virginia. All of these tax cuts are designed to help Virginians who need it the most, to get our cost of living down, to enable Virginia to compete with the states around us who are lowering their tax burdens." According to the House's bill, the larger rebates would remove around $1.25 billion in general fund revenue in the fiscal year 2023. That's $200 million more than the smaller proposal that would otherwise go towards spending priorities. It's good to see that some states have finally taken action on this. If you're waiting for a tax refund, there's still a silver lining. According to the agency's last quarterly adjustment, your tax refund may be accruing interest, and the rate jumps to 5% on July 1st. The IRS has 45 days after the filing deadline to process returns and send refunds. After that, the agency tags on daily compounding interest, tied to the federal short-term rate. IRS interest currently falls between 8.3% annual inflation, but it's still significantly higher than the average savings account. The U.S. Government Accountability Office reported the IRS interest payments ballooned to $3.3 billion in the fiscal year 2021, with a 33% spike from the 2020 for individual returns. The easiest way to check the status of a refund check is through